Alright, let's talk Karambits. Those of you that have been sticking around my channel for a while know that I'm a big fan of Karambit knives. So I was just going to show you my little assortment of Karambits that I have and use and what I use them for, and just kind of go over the pros and cons of the various options that are out there for quality Karambits. Maybe some that aren't as quality, but still pretty cool. So this is my assortment of Karambit knives. And I'll just kind of work my way through and talk about who makes them, pros and cons, that kind of stuff. So we'll start with this big, huge, crazy Karambit here. This is made by IPAK, I-P-A-K. They sell their stuff on eBay. IPAK Survival USA. This is a D2 stilled massive Karambit with G10, brown G10 scales, and it comes with this leather holster. A big thing that people like about the Karambit is that this retention ring that you can get your finger through and use as retention. Some people hold them with their pinky through if they have it in this grip. Not a big fan of that. It's a good way to get your pinky broke. But this massive thing really doesn't lend itself to even this grip. You look how high up I am on that grip. This actually doesn't feel as retained, even with my finger through there, as this does here and just using the jimping. My hand fits in there better this way. And if I was going to hold it like this, it would fit really well with this jimping, this aggressive jimping here this way. This is a very strong, fat-spined weapon. I don't know how much it weighs, but it's heavy. This is not something I would even carry on my belt with this holster, even though it does have a belt loop on it. This actually stays in my truck, sitting between my seat and the console of my truck, where I could reach over and pull this out if for whatever reason I needed it. It's also, like I said, it's a heavy gauged metal. I mean, I could use this as a pry bar if I needed to. You know, breaking myself out of a window or something like that, cutting a seat belt off. It's just nice to have a big weapon, big blade handy if I needed it. So that's what this is for. I just kind of like the look of it. I don't even consider this as something I would use in a traditional Karambit fashion because it's so big. It's not at all in the traditional sense how a Karambit would be designed, but I wanted to cover it because it is technically a Karambit, and I have it. So there's that right there. That's my truck blade. And then we get into this. This is a pretty unique blade, if you will. This is by Cold Steel, and it is called in their Nightshade series. It's their Nightshade Karambit, and it is completely plastic and rubber. And it's fiberglass reinforced plastic. It's a really strong plastic. And this is something that would get past a metal detector for whatever reason. You needed to get a blade past a metal detector. I'm not saying that you would need to do this. I'm not advocating you do anything nefarious with this weapon, but it is something to consider. Obviously on a scan like in an airport, they're going to catch you 100% of the time, rightfully so. But the only time I could think of maybe you would have something like this on you and needed to get it past a metal detector is I went to a Saints game in Atlanta one time and had to park in a really sketchy area. And there's obviously metal detectors going into a football game. I wasn't going to be able to get any kind of weapon, edge weapon or gun into that game because of the metal detectors. But I was going to be walking back in the dark in a very sketchy area to my truck. So it's nice to have something like this that I can conceal on me in a little Kydex sheath. Actually, I've made a Kydex neck holster for this where I could pop this out if I needed it. And it will cut. It punctures because it's sharp and it's strong. And it will actually lacerate too. You can kind of see it. Maybe the camera's picking this up. It's a little discolored at the edge. That's me going through 4-ply corrugated cardboard, slicing right through it like butter. Now, well, you know, skin obviously gives a little differently than cardboard does, but there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that you could puncture with this into flesh. You could use it to do control techniques. This is a pretty hard ring there, so it's a valuable and valid self-defense tool, even without it being steel. Okay, there's as much of an edge they can put on plastic as possible. It's obviously not going to cut you like this, but it will puncture. It would scratch and lacerate if you needed it to, but obviously doing pressure points and strikes, control techniques, that kind of stuff, this would work. Nightshade by Cold Steel. This is something I see a lot of everywhere online. It's the Honshu by United Cutlery. I don't know what kind of steel it is. It's probably not a super high quality steel. It does have a pretty good edge on it, but it is sharp. It will obviously lacerate. It will puncture. It's got this defensive tip there on the ring where you could put that on somebody's temple or in their forehead or anywhere, use pressure points or strikes with that. Once again, still doing the control techniques that you could normally do with a karambit. It is big. It comes with a shoulder holster. I'm not going to walk around with this in a shoulder holster probably. In fact, this stays in my office and I use it to cut open letters. I just like the look of it. It's a pretty knife to me, but it's not something that I've ever carried or even considered carrying in a defensive capacity, but you could if you wanted to. If I was going to carry this, I would probably augment that shoulder holster to either be a belt holster or something like that inside the waistband, something that would get this out of the way, make it readily accessible. It is a valid defensive tool. It's a pretty fat spine. If you tried to flail this and you could get past that little catch here, it would pop somebody pretty hard, but that little catch, this spike comes out so far, you can't really flail it. It gets caught there and it's probably going to come back and puncture you. So not a very good flailer. When I say flail, this is what I'm talking about, where you pop this out and extend your reach, maybe put that on somebody's brachial plexus or in their forehead or something like that, and you would normally catch it with your thumb so it doesn't bounce back and hit you. Going to be hard to do that with that there, but it does give you good purchase. It would give you a different striking option there and put more pounds per square inch on that tip than just a ring would do, even though a ring would be pretty devastating if it's metal anyway, or a hard plastic ring compared to your fist. But this is a valid defensive karambit. It's a little big for me to carry all the time, so I use it to open letters and open whatever boxes. This is like my box and letter opener. I just like the look of it. I don't get wrapped up in what kind of steel a knife has that's made to be a fighting knife. I don't use these as utility knives. So they have the edge they have, and the only time I'm going to use them if it's against somebody that's trying to hurt or maim me. So I don't really care how well it holds the edge or how easy it is to sharpen, because that's not what I use it for. Now we get into the higher end options, if you will. And I'm going to start at the low end of the high end, if that makes sense. These are the newest two that I have. Bang for your buck. It's going to be really hard to beat this. This is Browning's Black Label Tactical Knives series they have, and these are called the Vanquish and the Vanquish Trainer. For $80 before shipping and tax, you can get both of these knives. Which, as we go throughout the rest of these, you'll see that's a pretty good deal. So we'll start with the Trainer and kind of go over all what this knife is about. So it's a G10 liner locked weapon. I don't know exactly what the steel is. I think it says on the Vanquish it is, maybe it says it, maybe it doesn't. It's some sort of stainless steel. Once again, I don't really care about the type of steel because these are not utility knives for me. This deploys out of the pocket automatically if you turn it towards the edge of the pocket using their snag system that's sort of copyrighted, I think, by Browning. Basically what happens is a really aggressive jumping on this little ramp here catches the edge of your pocket, and as you pull it back, it automatically deploys. Fits in the hand really well, which is important for any knife, but especially a defensive blade. Got your ring there. A lot of people make the mistake of putting this ring all the way in like they're going to use it like brass knuckles. That's not where it goes on your finger. It goes in this middle section. Fits in my hand really well like that. It does have a little kind of a spike, a nub on the end that you could use as a striking thing, but you can plenty well strike with any part of that ring. Excuse me. It's a light weapon. Both of these are very light when compared to some of the others, and I think it's because there's not a lot of steel in the liner. There's just enough for the liner lock mechanism to work. It pretty much rides off that thick G10, and G10 is stronger than steel pound for pound, and this is pretty thick G10, so I'm not worried about it being structurally strong enough. It definitely is. And I love the fact that it comes with, you can get it with the Trainer for under $80 for both of them. When it's closed, the Trainer could be used as a less lethal weapon with lethal capabilities, because obviously it's a metal ring there. And then you've got this tab on the end, which would be devastating in that hammer fist sort of striking or using as pressure points. It also has a thumb ramp that you can click out and leave it deployed or not deployed. And what's interesting is where this thumb ramp is, it's pretty easy to get past that in the flail, if you just think about it being there. It's not as easy as it would be if it's out of the way to flail with it, but it doesn't impede it like this Honshu does with their spike. And you could still use that. You've got your purchase on there. You could still use that to add pressure points or strikes on both ends with it deployed or not deployed. And I love the snag feature. If you've watched my other Karambit video, any defensive knife needs to be quickly accessible, not just accessible to the knife itself, but to its fighting capability. So anything that's going to automatically deploy, pulling out of your pocket, is very valuable. You could probably also deploy this with a flail, okay, and then catch this. So let's say I flail to the brachial plexus and I turn this towards their clothing. I could probably deploy that on their clothing if I needed to add a lethal capability to that with the live blade, obviously. With the trainer like this, using it as a less lethal option, even having this open, you might even be able to puncture with that, but you would definitely put a lot of pounds per square inch using pressure points and that kind of stuff, using it to control limbs and doing all the things that you would do with a live blade besides slashing. And it gives you something that you can actually practice with a partner or yourself, and obviously you can't do that with the live version. They make a black and tan version of this. I think you can get blue or orange scales on the trainer. Once again, it's got the snag feature, fits really good in the hand. The only difference between the live blade and the trainer is going to be the edge, obviously. Okay, it's got that same thumb clip. I tend to prefer it without the thumb clip out. It just fits in my hand better with that thumb clip there, but it's not a deal breaker either way. So whichever one you prefer, I don't think you're going to lose or gain a heck of a lot of capability with it. And for the price point, you know, giving people that wouldn't normally be able to drop $250, $300 on a set of knives, a live blade and a trainer, this is a great option for somebody that wants to get in the knife training game, have a real fighting knife and a real trainer for under $100. In fact, I think it'll be under $100 with shipping and tax. So great value. You can flip the clips to either side. What I will probably do is order extra clips so that I can run them on both sides, so I can pick whichever pocket I want the live blade or the trainer to be in, depending on the situation. Great option there. Very impressed with this. Get those out of the way, and we'll move on to the Fox knives. Now, we'll start with the original Fox Karambit, which is their FX 599, made in Italy. Good steel, N690C steel, stainless steel. I've never held a knife in my hand that fits better in my hand than this blade right here. They make another version that's the 479, which is originally designed. It's actually their first Karambit. This is the training version of that blade. And you see how much more grip is sticking out of my hands compared to this. This was designed, per Fox, this was designed to be used with thick gloves on for like military and police. Unless you have giant hands, you're probably going to find that the 599 fits better. So I just had this along to show you the difference in size between the 599 and the 479. Blade's the same. You're not losing anything with the blade, really. They both have the Emerson wave feature, which is actually a more dependable pocket deploy than even the snag, because this really is going to catch on the pocket. If you catch it at all, it's going to open up. I have tried to deploy this a few times and it not catch. I think it's just a matter of pulling harder against the pocket to think about with that. This, if you barely catch it. In fact, it's hard to pull this out of your pocket without it deploying. Okay, and the pocket, the clip can go on either side. Just like with the darts, how I have them set up, I will probably order extra pocket clip for this, and I have a training version for this too. I just don't have it with me. You can deploy this with a tab here and a flick if you wanted to roll with it like this. Once again, I don't recommend you putting your pinky through that. I think you're more likely to break your finger doing that than you are to add any retention. Okay, but I typically hold, in fact, I always hold a Karambit like this anyway. So Emerson Wave, G10 scales, good stainless steel, super high quality. This Fox 599. It is a solid tang, half tang. This ring goes into a half tang, so it's super solid. Full metal liners, super smooth, adjustable. Both of these two are also adjustable in terms of how much resistance and opening that gives. None of them have any wobble to the blade. These don't have any wobble to the blade. So especially at the price point these come at, it's super high quality. These are made in China. You know, nobody really likes that, but I think these are made under strict quality control, at least from what I can see with these two blades. This is made in Italy. Fox makes very good quality stuff. With this closed, it's still a very good fighting knife. You can hit there. You've got that ring, so this is a valuable tool, it's a less lethal tool as well. So we'll get that out of the way. And move on to the newer Karambit from Fox, which is the Dart. Doug Markita designed these. I'm running a pocket clip. These actually come with two pocket clips, so I run them both at the same time. Doesn't change the grip at all. Just like with the 599, the Dart can be used closed in both ways, but what they've done with the Dart is actually added a window breaker. So you could pop a window out if you needed to, if you were stuck in a car or somebody else was stuck in a car, and that tiny little stainless steel is really going to pop that window out really well. But obviously, it would be a good sell. You put that little tiny tip on somebody, that's breaking skulls. That's breaking bone, puncturing flesh. So you're adding a little bit to your less lethal, if you want to call it that, defensive ability with the dart by having that window breaker. When it's deployed, if you wanted to, you could flip this up and it locks the liner, so you can't accidentally unlock it. I don't know how you would ever accidentally unlock this. The way I hold the weapon in that reverse grip like this, it would be really hard for me to pop that down anyway, so I'd probably never think about it. But if you're the kind of person that runs it this way, just by pushing against that jimping, you're going to automatically lock that blade, and there's no way it gets unfolded, but I don't think it gets unfolded anyway. So I'm not really sure why they took the time, effort, or engineering and expense to add that, but it's there, and it helps some people feel a little better. One thing I would do with this, and I will probably also do with the other blade, the Vanquish series, is I have taken the clips off and then sanded the G10 smooth where the clip touches the G10, because it actually will tear your pocket. The jimping or the texture on that G10 is so aggressive, it'll actually tear your pants over time in and out. Okay, so if you're practicing with the training version, which is what this is, the training version of the dart has the same window breaker, same locking system. Once again, the only difference is going to be the edge. There's no edge there. But everything else is identical. It's a valuable self-defense tool as well. In fact, it's something I've carried with the intent to use it as self-defense before. But you're going to get all the benefits of the live blade without the edge with this as a less lethal option, and obviously the trainer. The texture on these is so much more aggressive than the Vanquish. I really recommend you popping this off using a Dremel or a light sandpaper and just smoothing it out right where it touches the clip. This isn't nearly as aggressive, which doesn't really matter to me because that's not where my grip is coming from. So I could probably get away with not smoothing that out. In fact, I may not even do it. But I would recommend doing it on this or the 599s. It does the same thing here where the pocket rides against the clip, rides against the scales. Smooth that out so it's not tearing up your pants. Because if you're using a trainer all the time, in and out of your pocket all the time, it will chew your pants up if you don't smooth that out a little bit. Lastly, I have the CDHK Cold Dead Hands knife from Mandiola Defense. This is a really interesting blade. This is a spine lock blade. What it comes with, and I don't have it in here, but it comes with this little attachment, and this little gap here is basically them ripping off the Emerson Wave feature so it deploys very, very dependably from your pocket. But so that they're not ripping off the Emerson Wave feature, they have a little attachment that comes with the blade that bolts on here, and you can actually use this with the little screwdriver and Allen head tips that would fit in a standard Craftsman or whatever screwdriver. So it comes with a few tips, but any of that standard screwdriver tip, you bolt that little thing on there or snap it on there, and then you can use this as a utility tool. It's really awkward to use. I have screwdrivers in my truck if I need screwdrivers, so I don't keep that on there. But I think they had to do that so that they couldn't, no one would say that they had this on there so that it was a pocket deployer, but it deploys from the pocket. There's a two belly blade here. And a tiny Tanto tip, so this tip's probably a little stronger than maybe even the Fox blades are. And the belly's really strong, two cutting points with that tip in the middle, so it's really going to slice well through flesh or whatever you're cutting with it. It has a spike on the on this, so that you could get some pounds per square inch on a spike and a defensive capability. But once again, that does not get in the way of a flail, so you can still pop something, trap that there, so it doesn't bounce back on you. If you wanted to flail with it. And just like the other Karambits, closed, it can be used, obviously with that spike to hit hammer fist and a thrust. And you put that on an orbital socket or something like that, it's pretty devastating. Because the angle of the grip is so much different than the 599, you can kind of see the grip is way fatter here. When this is closed, and it's a very good spine lock. I'm not a big fan of spine locks, but this is super solid. Once again, no wobble in the blade. Very, 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 very quality made. Made in Taiwan with 154 cm stainless steel. Once again, don't care a lot about the stainless steel, what type of steel it is. Pocket clip can be put on either side for right hand or left hand use. And once again, you can adjust the retention of the blade opening and closing with a Torx head. But once again, the belly is shaped so different that when this is closed, this is really fat in your hand. It's not comfortable to hold in a closed position. But in a last-ditch effort, if this came out and didn't deploy, and you ended up close quarters with this in your hand closed, you could still use this as a self-defense tool pretty effectively. So that's my Karambit collection. These Vanquishes being the newest addition. If I had to pick my favorite in my hand, it would be the $5.99. So if you're looking at the Fox ones, which I think are the best quality folding Karambits on the market, you would be picking probably between the $5.99 or the Dart. So we'll cover really quickly the pros and cons of each. Okay, and really this is just about philosophy and the curvature of the blade. One of the main things that sets Karambits apart is this ring, for one, obviously, because it adds retention, it gives you the ability to flail, extend your reach, that kind of thing. And because you hold it in your hand like this typically, this allows you to catch stuff, block, parry, move stuff out of the way, and attack, which is a very valuable thing in any reverse grip. But with this added extra retention, you can really torque down and catch something, move it out of the way, and go back into a thrust or whatever. The curvature of this blade lends itself to that a little bit more. And slashing motions with this, that's going to dig in and do way more damage, go deeper than a straight blade. What it's not as good for is that ice pick kind of natural stabbing motion. If you found yourself doing that close range, if you would have to really kind of push your wrist forward to poke into something. And that's a training issue, and I think you can do it. And I think if you hammered hard enough, you're probably going to find yourself getting in, but it's not going to go deep unless you're intentionally supinating your wrist to really dig in that way. With the straight blade of the Dart, that is very natural with that time-toe grip. I mean, it's going straight in. You're not going to catch quite as hard because that curvature doesn't lend itself to it quite as well. You see how there's a gap there, but when I do that same motion with this, it almost completely closes up. Where this doesn't close up, it's still got a gap there. So you do get a little bit more purchase if you're trying to do control techniques with that curved blade, and you're going to get a better slashing motion with that curved blade than you will with this raking slashing motion with a straight blade, because it's just not coming towards them as far. So you're getting better poke and thrust out of this in reverse grip or that standard grip, but not as good as slashing and not as good as controlling. Not a good poker or thruster as well with the curved blade, better controlling a little bit and better slashing. So it's just personal preference. What I actually carry every day is I carry this in my right pocket, the $5.99. I carry this in my left pocket typically, and this in the pocket on top of my wallet, which makes it hard to reach in my pocket and get my wallet. And if I find myself in a situation where I wanted a defensive force multiplier without something that's going to slice a throat, I can reach in my back pocket and pull this out. So these three stay on me pretty much all the time. Right pocket, left pocket, back right pocket. So that I have a weapon for both hands. So if my hand's tied up in something, I can reach in my other pocket, automatically deploy another weapon. If I had them closed, I have two options in my hand like this, where I can hit on both ends. I get the glass breaker out of the Dart in my left hand if I really needed a good glass breaker. And then in my back right pocket, I have that less lethal, automatically less lethal option in my back pocket to come out and use as a force multiplier without slicing throats and cutting people open. So these are the three that stay on me all the time. These are the other options. These will probably find their way in the rotation pretty regularly too. This is just an example. I like this blade. I just don't like it as much as I like the other ones, but it's a very good option and near the same price point as the Fox options, and I would say comparable quality as well. Okay, so my recommendation, unless you have giant hands, is stay away from the Fox $4.79. Go with the $5.99 or the Dart, and I would recommend you getting the trainer for either one of them. If you're going to get a fighting knife, get a training knife. And if money's a problem, these are about $125 a piece, and this is $125 too, so you're spending $250 for a trainer and a live blade. If that puts you out of the market, well, $80 you can get a trainer and a live blade. It's not as good a quality, but it's definitely going to get the job done just as well, and at a much more comfortable price point. One thing I will probably do with this Vanquish and the Vanquish trainer is I will use a Dremel tool, and just in front of this I will add a cut into that jimping to mimic I'll cut that out and mimic the Emerson wave on my own blade just to add a little bit of dependability to the deployment. And I think it'll be dang near a perfect blade at that point in practice, in use, once I add the second pocket clip and make my own little Emerson wave there. So metal detecting, defeating, okay, it's still a force multiplier, truck knife, box opener, and these are all fighting knives with trainers available. And I think you can actually get a a CD HK Cold Dead Hands blade from what is it again? Mandiola Defense. I think they do sell a trainer for this. I just got this first and realized this is probably not going to be in the rotation all that regularly, so I didn't invest the money in the trainer because this is taking care of all of that for me. So, have any specific questions about these, just feel free to ask. And hopefully you will start seeing more videos incorporating this kind of stuff, especially when I start teaching edged weapon combatives a little more regularly, and it's with people that don't mind me videotaping. You'll see a little more of these jumping into the rotation on the channel. So once again, got any questions about this or anything that you think I can get an answer to you for, don't hesitate to ask, send me a message, leave me a comment. And once again, appreciate your viewership. Like, share, subscribe, and look for more of this to find its way into the rotation.